Hi, I'm Ryan Recker. If you like animation cells, you're probably like me. You've searched YouTube for them and have found a few videos, but not many. So, through the great animation art collectors group that we have here on Facebook, I thought I would start an interview series talking to some people that collect. Maybe we can learn a thing or two from them. Today, we're going to be talking to Mark, a longtime collector, and I think you'll enjoy this conversation. And if you would like to be part of the series, make sure to reach out to me and we can arrange for that. All right, on to Mark. How long have you been collecting cells?
Since about the mid 1980s.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is.
Was cell collecting popular then, or were you kind of like on the forefront of it?
I was on the forefront,
Yeah,
which is both good for reduced prices, at least compared to today, but it was bad for you didn't see a lot of them out there.
yeah. Uh, I wonder too when it comes to animation cells back then, they were flying through it and they didn't know what to do with it. Is that why it was more affordable then? Because they're like, well, we got to dispose of it somehow. We might as well make money.
Disney, which was my first purchase, had been doing this for decades
Yeah.
before I on and off. I mean, not necessarily consistently, but they always saw value in the art. And I was actually in a Disneyana shop when I saw my first cell. That kind of hooked me.
That's awesome. What shop were you? Was it like an actual Disney shop that was selling them?
It was at Disneyland, and it was a shop called Disneyana.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
And
pretty
that's
cool. Well, I
been
guess you're
the animation art and other
well. Like
Disney.
now, I just took my family to Disney, and we stayed at the Art of Animation Hotel. So they have a bunch of the sketches and drawings on the walls and stuff as part of the design. So they've really leaned into that in that sense. But it's been 20 years since they've used animation cells. Now I don't know when did Disney stop using them? It had to have been then around then.
It was not then. It was what was the first one? Can't remember. I can't
Because
remember the digital. They started transitioning to digital in Beauty and the Beast, but they
yeah,
did not. That was, traditional animation art for the most part.
do you own Disney a lot of Disney cells still today?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's what they said. I was listening to people talk about them, and they mentioned that people that bought Disney cells paid a lot of money for them. So if they go to sell them, they're going to be expecting a lot of money for them. So Disney has holds its value over the years.
Yeah, I guess so. I was actually surprised when I recently started downsizing my collection that they not only went up some, they went up a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Well, Mark, how large is your collection then? When you say downsizing, do you have a ton of cells?
yeah, I do. And right now I'm in the process of rematting and framing them. So I'm
Oh,
not,
what?
can't show you like a wall of cells or anything at this point.
So is every one of your cells matted? Do you have them all presented that way?
No, I don't. And
Hmm.
a lot of the lesser ones I didn't, but the Disney ones I did.
Yeah. Do you?
I my goal was to get a couple of Disney cells from each of the features,
Mhm.
which was a tough goal. But I only started with Cinderella in 1950.
Right. Did you frame your own cells?
I used to frame some of my cells because it was a lot cheaper. It was expensive framing
Yeah.
and matting. So I would buy custom size frame and mat them myself, or I eventually went to a company online that does matting, and they send you a frame and the acrylic and such.
Yeah. In that sense, it does save you a lot of money doing it on your own, but it's still pricey, and people try
It
to find
is.
ways to cut corners. So, do all of your frames, all of your picture frames, have like the museum quality glass, and do you have them like that level?
Well, I moved about 4 years ago, and before that, I was in a temporary location. So they have not actually been on the wall for many years. When I did have them out, I had them in a hallway, and starting with about a sword and a stone cells, I had them all framed. But it was at that point, it was regular acrylic,
Mhm.
and using UV filtering acrylic at that point.
Mhm.
But I had them framed in just simple aluminum frames of different colors.
Yeah.
My older cels from the 50s were often not full-size sheets of cell material. And those I matted myself and obtained different framing for.
Yeah. Because I see that empty space behind you on the wall. You can probably fit 7
That's
cells
exactly
there.
going. You caught me a little too early, so I can't show you a wall of cells.
Oh, so at points, do you have them on display? See, I'm in my basement, and during the virus, I worked from home. So I did a radio show in my basement. So I have this like pipes, like just regular PVC piping, and then I put like moving blankets up to try to dull the sound of the basement. And on the other side of the wall here, I just framed a couple of them, but I don't think I've been framing correctly. So I know there's right and wrong ways to do it. And have you learned who taught you how to frame, by the way?
A lot of the information I got early on was from Ron Stark of SR Labs. Basically, acid-free materials. You want the cell to hang from being secured along the top edge. And then you, of course, want to use UV acrylic. You want to look for 99% filtering acrylic.
Right.
For both paper art as well as cell art.
Maybe I need to redo what I got here. See, this is why I'm learning about a lot of this. I thought, probably the best way to put them in there is just to leave them in one of the, the preservation bags, and then just put them in that way, like leave them in the bag in the side of the frame.
I don't recommend that. For one thing, something I actually found out just recently is animation cells are subject to VS, or known as vinegar syndrome.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I was aware of that for movie film, that it would start to break down and actually cause a vinegar smell.
Yeah.
And I recently found out it can attack animation art.
Oh, sure. No, I've heard that too, but I heard that you're supposed to, I don't know, every 3 months or something, air them out. So give them a little chance.
That's fine. Okay. As long as you don't leave the off-gassing trapped in that bag you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I would do what you're saying. Why keep them in a bag if they're framed?
Well, what I'm worried about is them free floating and then me not knowing it's touching something else and then possibly sticking. That's what I was afraid to. And I thought, at least on the bag, it might not stick to that if it's touching up against something.
Well, touching up against what? If it's another cell, you want to try to create a space between the cell.
Yeah, I guess there's these spacers and things you can put
the back
on
of the cell and the back.
It's probably safer for me to hire someone to just hold them up whenever I'm around, and they can just hold them so I can look at them. And that would probably be the safest way to do it, of course, with gloves on. Did you ever find yourself buying cells in bulk?
No, but in the around 2008, during the downturn of the economy, I found cells became cheaper. So I bought a lot of the non-Disney cells for very good prices because they look cool and they weren't very much money.
Oh, okay. What's like a cheap cell versus an expensive cell in your collection? What's the range?
TV related cells, Alvin and the Chipmunks, He-Man, She-Ra. My daughter was a big She-Ra fan. Mm-hmm. Stuff along that line.
Yeah.
Scooby.
Ooh, what year Scooby-Doo was?
Actually, I picked up an original background and a non-matching but really nice Scooby and Shaggy running cell from 1983. Mm-hmm. I didn't buy it then. I've got some from Zombie Island, Rick Witch's Ghost, some backgrounds, some really cool backgrounds.
Oh, that's cool. It would always, I don't know, have you ever seen Scooby-Doo and the Globetrotter cells? Have that ever came and surfaced to the public?
I wasn't looking for them, so
yeah, I guess that's true. What do you look for then? So let's say it's a slow night and you're like, I'm going to go look and see what's out there. What do you search for?
Well, I'm not doing much buying now. Mm-hmm. There was a guy online on eBay that I got a lot of my cells from that were very good prices. He would buy them in bulk by the pound and then sell them on eBay. So I actually ran into him too at a couple of Comic Cons or
Oh,
WonderCon conventions and such. So I bought a lot from him. So it's just, you know, random running across, looking at cells online or something.
yeah.
But I'm not buying much nowadays.
Oh, yeah. I tried to do that once. So I bought kind of like on eBay. It was I forgot how many 40 or 50 cells of Ghostbusters. Because I was like, they're always selling, and they're normally pretty low end. Like, you know, you can find a Ghostbuster 10 to 20 bucks, and they're pretty nice because there's so many of them out there. And then there's some that are, you know, much higher. You know, some that can go 30, 40, 50 bucks. But this is how I justified it to my wife. I said, honey, there's some really good ones. I'm going to keep the ones I want, and then I'm going to sell the ones I don't, and I'll make up the money so it'll be an even wash. See, I got to try to bargain with my wife now. I'm at that
Oh yeah.
stage in my life. And
Yeah.
I think I'm like 20 bucks away from breaking even. So I got a couple up on eBay right now. I'm hoping to sell so I can say to my wife, see, I told you I could do it.
Yeah. I actually have some Ghostbuster too with some nice original hand painted backgrounds.
Oh, perfect. I think I have one background. I bought from and how I got started was the Animation Legends ads caught me on Facebook. And, you know, they had different TV shows that they would have up at certain times, limited periods, because, you know, they'd sell out or whatever. So I got some of the Ghostbuster ones. I think I started first with Sonic the Hedgehog, and it got me 100% hooked.
There's something about seeing a cell in person that I don't know. It's the original piece of that
Yeah.
character, and it just kind of stands out and it looks different. It's not a picture. It's not a copy. It's
Yeah.
an actual character.
Oh, it's cool. Are you married?
I was.
Oh, okay. I was going to say my because I try to show them like cells to my wife. She has zero interest. My son, who's 7, is very interested. He thinks it's awesome, even though he hasn't seen any of the cartoons I've collected. Because a lot of times, you know, stuff from like the 80s and 70s or 90s, they're way before his time. He's like always interested in newer things. But
Right.
he did start watching Doug. I have a couple of Doug cells. Some
Ooh.
of those early Nickelodeon shows are pretty easily found online, and they're, you know, depending on what you're looking for, you can find some in an affordable price range. And it's to me, it's kind of cool to be able to say that, you know, I recognize this character. This is something I watched and enjoyed, and this was actually used in the production of a show. It's like a super cool thing to have. It's hard to explain, really.
Yeah, it is. As a child, I pretty much only saw, I think, one Disney animated feature, and it was Jungle Book. So
Hmm.
that's actually a favorite area of mine.
Oh, that's cool. So what was like the type of shows you focused on? Because I think when you messaged me, you were talking about some of the He-Man and things, and that's very popular still today. The He-Man cells, that's kind of one of those timeless shows that have many generations of fans that just seem to always like draw a crowd.
Right. Yeah. I never watched He-Man. My kids didn't. But again, I saw an opportunity. They were good price, and I picked ones that I liked.
Yeah.
So got tons of drawings, some cells, some backgrounds, and such. So those are ones I'm going to start selling pretty soon, I think.
How do you sell them? Do you just do eBay, or do you go to shows and things?
I haven't done shows yet, at least. I'm just kind of beginning. I just started last year selling uh, eBay, and I even consigned some Disney cells with a gallery.
Hmm. That's awesome. Well, the Disneys will always have value if they're in good condition. You know, and some people tell me like the resiliency of them. Some of the higher end studios use better materials so they don't degrade as fast, but then the cheaper ones, if you don't take care of them, that's when you really have issues with them degrading or having the vinegar syndrome. But like people are telling me like the Simpson cells, for example, they use a high quality celluloid or whatever, and for some reason they're more resilient than your average cell. I don't know much about that side of it. Have you ever studied it that far deep?
To an extent, the Getty has an institute that does research, and they started doing some research along with the Disney morgue or archives.
Oh yeah.
And apparently, even with the nitrate cells, which came before the current ones, there were like 4 different makeups of that.
Hmm.
And same with the current cells. There's just different. There's slight variations, and they will all have a slight different effect on age. And it's also how they're stored too.
Yeah.
So there is no hard and fast rule, because a lot of the cells I bought from the newer Disney features was through their art program, or at least the cells released through their art program, which was starting in I think the 80's, late 80's maybe. They were laminated, and those are horrible.
Said
You
laminate?
familiar with lamination?
Wait, so I'm trying to envision this.
Yeah.
So kind of like the
You
plastic
got-
material you'd laminate with, that's what they were putting that's what they were using?
I don't know specifically what material, but they take a sheet of plastic and they would heat it up to, I think it's 175 degrees, and fuse that to the back of the cell, with the
Oh.
concern that otherwise paint might fall off, I guess is the concern.
Oh.
Many of their cells, they also laminated the front of it. And what
Really?
they've done, oh, it's horrible, because they've essentially increased and almost guaranteed that those cells will get vinegar syndrome,
Yeah.
because they've literally trapped any chance of any off-gassing of the cell material. They've now trapped it, and it just degrades. And you might not even smell the vinegar syndrome, even though it may be that far advanced and have it.
Mhm.
But a friend of mine is trying to perfect a technique to remove the lamination layer. She removed the layer on one of these cells, and as soon as she did, she got a strong vinegar odor.
Mhm.
So it literally trapped and prevented you from detecting the vinegar odor.
Wow. That's like, you ever seen that movie Hurt Locker? Like the precision to remove laminate off of an old Disney cell, thinking you're not going to hurt the thing. That's amazing. So like, I've heard of different ways of preserving audio. So I work in radio, and then of course the old days you had the reel to reel tapes, and the longer they sit, the actual physical tape would stick to each other. But the people that preserve them, they say there's a special technique. You can put them in the oven, heat them up a little bit, and it gets rid of some of the adhesion where they don't stick to each other. But it has to be done in a very specific way. There's certain groups that try to preserve audio, and they know what they're doing at least. But if you were to just, blindly go and pop it in, you'd be done. So yeah, maybe there's a method to all of that could actually work, but it's just to think that there's something adhesive on paint that could be removed without damaging the paints, just beyond my comprehension. I don't know how that could happen.
She was successful in one cell doing it, and I hope to have her work on one of my Jungle Book cells.
Yeah.
Removing it. But one thing that she's kind of figured out is if it's double laminated on the front and back, and it's already starting to degrade the paint and or cell material, the chances are less of being successful.
Gotcha. Have you ever sent a cell in for restoration?
Actually, I have 3 of them in right now with a woman who's doing it part-time. She had some training at the Getty. And what the concern of those cells is the paint. The paint will start to dry and crack or lift off the cell. These are non-laminated ones, but she has been taught in a technique to rehydrate that paint and hopefully reattach that paint to the cell material and prevent further cracking and such.
Oh, wow.
But she's a preserver, she's not a restorer. There is a difference. A lot of the restorers will completely wipe off all the paint and completely repaint the cell.
Really?
Yes.
Doesn't seem right. That's almost like, isn't there that one philosophy question about, you have a boat and you keep replacing the pieces. At what point is it a new boat? At what point is it a new cell? Well, I don't, it's such an interesting way to do it, to even try to match the colors properly. It must be difficult, because I'm guessing some of these studios use paints that no longer exist by companies that no longer exist.
Yeah, even if the formula existed, which there is one restorer, conserver, well, classify them as both, that has a bunch of the paints and formulas, or the pigments, I should say. But that doesn't mean you would even match it exactly. But there are, I think, color meters that you can use, and
Oh,
there's doing it with your eyeball. You know, an artist would be more likely to do that. And if you completely wipe it and repaint it, unless you put it up right against another matching cell, you might not know it.
yeah. I guess
Which
that's
is
true.
a problem too. I don't know that if a cell is restored, if that information that that cell has been restored, and to what extent, I don't know that that information gets kept with that animation art. And I would value it differently.
Yeah. And I guess there's the ethical question of disclosing it. Do we know people are doing that? Have you ever had an issue of buying a cell that was a replica and not knowing it or anything like that?
No, I have not.
Yeah, it's a scary thing for a lot of new collectors. They don't know because, you know,
Absolutely.
they want to put money forward. They want to purchase something that they love, but they really don't know the difference. They feel like they could be taken advantage of if they're, just buying something on eBay.
Plus, I've seen some cells affected by vinegar syndrome, the laminated ones, and they may be in an earlier stage or a later stage, and you can see the difference, but people are putting them online at an auction, and they're getting money
Hmm.
for them. And I just wonder if the buyer understands what he's getting.
Yeah.
I have sold some before I knew about the vinegar syndrome and after, but I at least clearly disclosed the damage that I saw.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if the buyers completely understand. I didn't understand when I first started selling, but I sold this one guy 3 animation cells, one of Pete's Dragon, one of Mickey from Mickey's Christmas Carol, and another one I can't remember. I sold them to him for $200 because
Mhm.
they were, and I just hope that the buyers understand that,
Yeah. Well,
so they know that that cell has a limited life and already is damaged.
yeah, I bought a cell once. I have them down here. I keep some binders close to me. Hold on. But I don't really, when it comes to vinegar syndrome and all these other things, I don't even know if there's a scale or a way to understand how far along something is, or if there's any universal way to say, okay, what percentage of damage is it, or if there is any, or what's normal and what's not normal. I really don't know if there's a universal way to determine those things for most people.
Well, there it is.
See if I got one, because I purchased one. Someone sold it online and it was a nice price. I should have known. You know how they tell you if the price is too good to be true. And I really enjoyed it. So I thought I'll take a flyer on it. And it's a cool cell, but it's super damaged. But the picture didn't show it damaged, but it definitely had some damage to it. It's this good old Skeletor.
Yeah.
But when they took a picture, you kind of see this fog in the fade or whatever. It had water damage, but they didn't show that in the listing. They must have taken a picture of the camera angle just the right way where it didn't show up with any damage. So I was like, oh, that's cool. This might be, because I've always wanted a Skeletor, but I didn't want to, fork out too much money for it. So, I end up getting it, and I'm like, I can't be too mad. It wasn't that expensive, but I wish I would have known better.
Well, be careful, because vinegar syndrome can transfer from one cell to another cell.
Yeah, I think in that case it was more.
And wash your hands before you handle another cell.
Yeah, in that case,
But
I think it was like more water.
Cells, I'm sorry.
I thought it was more water damage because the cell was wrinkly and it didn't really smell in that sense.
Wrinkling is one of the first signs of vinegar syndrome.
Is that right?
Yep.
See, I don't smell it though. Maybe I'm going to give it.
That's a late stage.
Yeah.
But wrinkling is one of the first signs of vinegar syndrome, and a stiffening of the cell. And that kind of seemed a little more stiff to me.
Yeah.
There could be other damage too, but that's part of that problem. But there are these things called AD strips, acid detecting strips.
Huh.
You would lay it on there and keep it in an enclosed box, and there's a color code. Depending on the temperature, you check it in a day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, and the strip will change color
Huh.
if there is the beginning of acid showing up, which is the vinegar syndrome.
Oh, yeah. So this is, I can already see it. My wife's going to say, huh? So now you're sniffing your cells, huh? That's how you know you have a problem.
Well, I recommend AG strips that you can prevent that.
What are those strips called? I'm going to write that down and look them up.
A-D, or just acid detecting strips.
Okay.
They sell them in lots of, I don't know, 80, 100 or something. So
Yeah.
they're not cheap, but recommended.
Yeah. You know how in the old cop movies, they always like, they dip their pinky in it and they go, yep, that's cocaine. So once you
No,
become, how long of a collector do you need to be before you can do that to detect how much acid's in your cell?
I don't, I'm not at that stage yet.
I don't know if anyone is. So when you first started collecting, how did you learn about it? Was it just going into the Disney shop, or did you know anyone else in this
Completely
world
random.
that ever collected one?
Completely random. Walked into the Disneyana shop, saw a bin, started looking
That's
through,
it.
and
That's
they're
awesome.
cool.
So does the Disney morgue actually exist still, or is that a long gone
Oh
thing?
no, it does exist. It is significant.
Wow. The morgue.
They keep a lot of what they have produced during the making of a lot of those films. And animators will often refer to those. And they will even, for their animators, they'll make photocopies of a whole sequence of cells, or a sequence, actually not of cells, but likely of drawings, so they could study the movement, how the older animators did it.
Well, that makes sense. Because, I read a book and I purchased it. It was The Animation Art of X-Men. It was talking about how they went through that show. And they say a couple of things that's always hard for new animators is to try to figure out how to properly time out a show when they're trying to, because there's like a special log they use to write it out in each frame and each moment. And it's like so difficult to like translate that to actual real time cartoons to make it look like it's, not too choppy, not too fast. It's a difficult thing. That's how you'd learn from it. You look at the animator's morgue and see what works.
Absolutely.
So what's your, do you have any cells? I know you're downsizing, but do you have any that you're always looking for on the hunt for?
Not so much now. Not really.
Yeah. I think everyone kind of has something that got them into it, like that cartoon they loved as a kid that they, as their default search. If you were to go on their eBay search results, you'd see that pop up. I finally bought my first Simpsons. I've always wanted to get a Simpsons since I started, but here's what I've also learned. It's very addicting. So you have to be careful not to spend too much money because you'll get over your head pretty quick buying cells.
Oh, yes, you will. And actually, I've gotten rid of a lot of cells previously to get other cells.
Mm-hmm.
A friend once called it a fluid collection.
Yep.
Art in, art goes out, more art comes in.
Well, that's how you justify it. Like for me, I'm also finding other things like in storage bins that I had toys when I was a kid, things that have found to be some value. I'm like, well, I'm never going to use this again. I might as well sell it and then get something I'm interested in right now. That seems to be a popular trade-off. Mentally, it seems like a good idea.
Yeah. And you actually have the right idea. If you can make some money, you can feed your collection.
Yeah. Well,
by buying cells for investment, although you have to be careful about that, of course.
Yeah. Well, it's to me less about investment and more about that opening that package when it comes to the mail. That's a whole different high. You're like, oh, it's here. I can't wait to see this thing.
Right.
Like Christmas morning.
And when I say investment, I mean to be able to get that package.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For you, do you think in the future there's still going to be an interest in animation cells? Because at this point, I'm thinking about myself. I grew up on this type of animation. Next generation comes around. They're not going to be on this type of animation. Everything's going to be familiar digital to them. I don't know if they'll have the same appreciation. I hope they do. And then the damage to the cells may make them more rare. So who knows? Maybe they'll even out that way.
It's hard to say. It really is, because your point is valid. Are there going to be new collectors, especially when the programming they're looking at is just digital?
Yeah. They're
So
doing everything. Hopefully it's not all NFTs. I think that's such a waste of money. This is like the original NFT. Like you're holding something that's non-fungible or whatever. Well, I guess that wouldn't be an NFT, but you're actually holding something that's unique to you. That's like a one and only
and
product that only you have. That's such a cool idea.
that hit it on the head for me. The last decade, I still have interest in Jungle Book animation art, but I've transitioned to some of the production material. So I was able to get a background sketch, part of the process of creating a final painted background. They'll start with a sketch from Jungle Book, and I got it for what I thought was very reasonable. I also got a sketch of Baloo and Mowgli together.
Oh, wow.
And I just recently found out from a blog by Glenn Keane, a Disney animation artist. He was able to tell me that it was actually done by Frank Thomas, this sketch, because Frank, if you're familiar with in-between sketches and such, key sketches, Frank did everything.
Huh. Well, that's really cool. And to be able to identify the artist and know that adds a lot more to it.
Absolutely. I was very excited to hear that.
How old was Jungle Book when you came out? Or how old were you when Jungle Book was released? Do you know?
Well, I was about 11, I think, or so.
See, there might be something to that.
Lauren
Michaels
is a childhood friend, and I am attracted because of it.
Well, Lauren Michaels, when asked about SNL, what was the best year? And he said, whatever years you were in high school, that's the best years of SNL, because for whatever reason, you're like the right perfect age for it. And maybe that's what it is about animation cels. There's like a sweet spot, 11 years old, whatever you were watching then, that's kind of like going to be your favorite thing you search out.
Yeah.
That could be it. There could be something to it.
Maybe.
Is
there anything? What are 11-year-olds watching now? And
they're like, I need to look up TikTok dances to collect. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you would like to bring up?
You asked about showing some stuff.
Oh yeah, what do you got?
I've got a few things. Well, speaking of the Jungle Book and pricing and stuff, the movie cels are obviously more expensive now and such, and I could never afford a background. I always wanted an original background, but Disney created a Jungle Cubs series from Jungle Book, but it was the characters as young characters. Only during some of the shows, I heard, they had like a flash ahead where they would present the characters as they were from the 1967 movie.
Oh, cool.
So I was able to find and purchase, wasn't cheap, but it wasn't near what a cost of the original would be, a pan background with cels from the TV show.
Ooh, so you have that now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. I wonder if look at that. Oh, that is beautiful.
And as you can see, there's what's called a cel overlay. The rock is on a painted cel, and it was overlaid over any animation art, because then the character could easily walk behind the rock without having to register the character to the rock.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then it's all hand painted. It's an excellent piece.
How many cels are there in that setup?
The rock is a cel. Mowgli, well, there's 3 characters, but I'm not sure how many cels. They could have been painted on one cel. I'm not sure.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just the colors and everything else with it. It's
Absolutely.
So beautiful.
Yep. And it is done in the style of the 1967 movie.
Oh, that is so cool. Love it. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And then a family favorite was The Rescuers. But this is interesting because although it's not a background per se, it's from The Rescuers. The painted on a cell. So it's essentially like a background or like a partial background.
Oh, wow. That action scene, that's such a cool,
Exactly.
cool moment. Just that one frame of that moment's perfect. That is
Now,
so cool.
one, just cool because it's a very nice image of Alice from,
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
I got lucky and got that way back, I think in the
No
80s.
kidding. Man, how
Yeah.
old is that? What year did that come out?
Is that 50? No, that was 51, I think.
Wow. That's in beautiful shape.
And then what got me interested too, like I said, was the process of created an animated film. So I actually ran into it comes in a little suitcase. It's a Disney animation education kit.
Mm-hmm.
I verified it, but I was told by one source that Disney made them for animation art galleries to educate the public, and that they only made 25. I don't know that.
Wow.
But what's cool is it has representations of the whole process. It shows story sketches.
Oh, cool. That looks like the wall of the art of animation.
And then, a model sheet.
Yes.
Then it actually has a series of rough drawings. There's
that's cool.
A series here. A series of cleanup drawings.
Oh, that's cool.
Then it's transferred to a cel, so you have the painted outline.
Right. So it shows the whole process.
Right. Then you have a painted cel.
Oh, cool.
Then it goes into a layout drawing.
Okay.
A background painting.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I actually put wax paper behind the painted image because I have concern of it sticking.
Yeah.
Here is a completed scene.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. I use the micro chamber paper.
What's that?
You ever use any of this, the micro chamber paper?
I just learned of that and I'm going to get some and use it.
It seems to be something that a lot of people recommend. It kind of helps absorb some of those gases when you have them sitting in binders.
Especially if you're keeping it in. Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah. Well, this was a lot of fun. I need to go pick up my son from school, but half hour went by so fast. This has been great. You're the very first one we've done on this.
Oh, really?
I was going to interview a collector over the weekend, and then unfortunately last night I got a call from my boss who said you need to come in tomorrow morning. So I had to go to bed early, and I had to reschedule that one. So you're my very first interview on this series, and I'm so glad you reached out saying that you're interested in doing this because this has been a lot of fun.
Great.
Thanks for sharing some of your knowledge, and we'll have to stay in touch, of course. And I know if anyone's watching here, and you mentioned that you're downsizing, is there any place you would want to direct people to look for the things you're selling? If you want to give a plug.
Well, I'll probably mention it on the forum, but also my eBay name is Marop, MAROP. But right now I'm being listed, but I will be listing art there, and I may sell some directly through the animation art collector group.
Yeah. I bought my Simpsons one through that group. That's the first time I've done that. Paid through PayPal because it's nice and secure. And I bought it from the UK. So it cost $25 to ship it. It got here like in a week, and it was pretty nice. It was perfect. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I thought this was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this, being the first one on here. I think there's going to be a lot of people that enjoy this type of content because there's really not a lot of conversations about this out there.
Right.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Bye.
Big thanks again to Mark, the very first interview in this series. I look forward to doing some more. I've already had a few people reach out to me to do these videos, so I look forward to talking to anyone that would like to talk cels, mostly because there's no one else in my life that will talk cels. No one. I mean, literally, my wife refuses to. So if you would like to talk cels and you have a thing or two to share, or would just want to show off your collection, go ahead and reach out to me. I'd love to do that. Otherwise, thank you for the support here, and we'll look forward to making more of these in the future. Thanks.